have somebody who can relate to these people and tell them. I mean, we've got 20-year-olds coming in with vertebral fractures. They don't know where to go. And if the osteoporosis society is not there, there is nobody who will deal with it.
Okay, given the fact that we are in the grip of savage health cuts, and you can use that term loosely if you wish, where does the society stand at the moment?
Well, at the moment the society is in a very precarious situation because we haven't got funding. But the important thing is that one hip fracture, which is probably the most disastrous and most lethal, one hip fracture can cost a minimum of 16,000, but it can cost up to 36,000 a year just for one person.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include the rehabilitation.
Of course. No, financially it doesn't make sense, absolutely. But when it comes to austerity, what people have found now, it's not really about making financial sense. It's about the immediate saving that people accrue. Fast forward just a little. Say, for instance, that the society does go under. How much of an impact will that have, particularly on bone health?
Well, it would be absolutely disastrous because there would be nobody else to put out the information. We, the Irish Osteoporosis Society, produced DVDs and PowerPoint presentations for the schools, which is osteoporosis is now part of the biology and the home economics of the intercert. We want to get it into the schools. Brent Pope did a very good book on bones, which has been sold, very well laid out for people to understand. And it's important that if you have I have a family, one of their relatives came in to me and he had vertebral fractures, and he came from a family of 10. 9 of those, they're in their 60s, have vertebral fractures, and they didn't know. People are not being treated. If what we're trying to persuade the orthopaedic surgeons that anybody who comes into an accident, an emergency, who has one fracture, they should be assessed to see and find out why they did it and treat the cause. And quite often it's just a lifestyle. We've had 17-year-old boys with vertebral fractures and far worse than their parents because they didn't exercise, they didn't take calcium and vitamin D, they smoked, they drank caffeine, and they had the genetics on either side. So if you can identify what is at risk, then you can do something about it.
Yeah, Professor, we see a lot now, we read a lot, particularly in the medical press, with regards to vitamin D. How important is this?
Vitamin D is essential because the vitamin D is not just a vitamin, it's actually a hormone. The recommended amounts of vitamin D used to be 15 nanomoles per litre, and that would help bone health in that it helped you, because you need vitamin D to absorb calcium. If your calcium levels go down because you've low vitamin D, then you run into trouble. But higher doses of vitamin D are now being recommended because it helps in immunity, it helps prevent certain cancers, and it also helps in certain neurological disorders. And it's only in the last year or two that they've realised that they need more vitamin D. One of the reasons that we have so little vitamin D now is that so many people, when they go out in the sun, they put 50 block. If you've got 50 block on, you don't absorb any of the ultraviolet rays. And there's an epidemic in Australia of osteoporosis purely because so many people don't go out in the sun. In the Middle East, where you've got, because they were, for religious reasons, don't get exposed to any sun, their osteoporotic levels are going sky high. Same in the epidemic in both China and India is going to be astronomical because people are not getting the adequate vitamin D. We now have rickets back in Ireland.
Wow. Yeah.
Totally preventable. And these are simple, basic things because people they listen to what they want to hear.
Of course. You've you've painted a picture of an epidemic that it's immediate, it's with us at the moment, it is in our midst, and it is not something that is confined to, as myth would have it, older women.
Oh no.
Yeah, it affects everybody. What would your message be to people who are concerned about their bone health?
I think the first thing to do is to find out whether they're at risk. There are certain risk factors and if you have these, then you should be scanned to see whether you really have a problem. And if you have a problem, then you have to do something about it.
Okay, and the society would be really the first port of call.
It is. It is the only port of call.
And with that in mind, what is your message to the people who hold the purse strings in healthcare in this country in relation to the society?
Well, I think the thing is that if they don't provide help to the society, they're going to have a major economic disaster, because these people who fracture their hips, who fracture their spines, they're going to block all the beds. And financially, it means that the number of people in hospital or in respite will increase dramatically. They can't cope with it at the moment. And osteoporosis is preventable, and it's treatable, and you can get people back. So it's very important. And it's even scarier in that of people with vertebral fractures, only 15% are diagnosed.
Yeah.
I saw a patient recently with 5 vertebral fractures, and nobody had even investigated it. It's got to be brought into the educational system. We run a master's in sports medicine, and one patient that I saw recently, 37-year-old, with 5 vertebral fractures, had been put in a brace, but it was only when she went to see one of our ex-students who'd done the course that she was referred to find out why she had the fractures, that she had osteoporosis, and if they looked into the history, she'd already fractured 2 years beforehand, and nothing was done about it. So it's education and prevention that's essential.